If you ever try to get your finances in order, chances are you failed a lot. But the truth is, it's not your fault. Americans say they need a salary of $233,000 a year to feel financially comfortable. But in 2022, the real median household income was just a third of that, at $74,580. While the median income continues to fall, average household spending increases, reaching $72,967 in 2022. But first, to understand who or what is at fault and how much money Americans actually need, we need to understand where our money is going. Looking at the numbers, it's clear that this isn't financially sustainable. A spending pattern where people must use 98% of their income just to get by. A cycle perpetuated by 6 major expenses. First, there is housing to think about. Depending if you own or rent, your monthly expense could be drastically different. In 2023, the median national rent is around $2,000. Thankfully, rent payments is usually the same every month with no surprises. Property taxes increasing? None of your business. Roof leaking? Call the landlord. When it comes to owning a house, however, it's a different story. The typical monthly mortgage is $2,605, but then there's HOA fees, property taxes, and the occasional blocked toilet to account for. So for both renters and homeowners, let's say the average housing expense, including utilities, is about $2,400 a month. Next, there's transportation. Car ownership has been an American obsession. Kids draw pictures of cars, teenagers pretend to drive them, and adults fantasize about their dream four-wheeler. As a result, 91.7% of households have at least one car. In recent years, the rise in the cost of car ownership has outpaced inflation.
The cost to own a vehicle is at an all-time high.
AAA says the average cost to own a single car is $894 a month. Then there's groceries and food, eggs, milk, and pineapple pizza. Americans spend on average $9,343 per year or $778 a month on this. Next, healthcare. When you're sick, do you go to the doctor's office or just lay on your couch hoping you'll get better because you want to avoid that hefty medical bill, which nowadays typically costs $8,200 per year or $683 a month? Then there's student loans and childhood education to think about. Whether you studied electrical engineering from MIT or majored in poetic philosophy in Iowa State, student loan payments can vary. For a household with 2 college graduates, payments can be another $400 to $600 a month. Then there's education expenses for kids. After school activities, tutoring programs, computers. For public school, it costs roughly $162,900 from kindergarten to 12th grade, about $12,500 a year or $1,000 a month. Next, there's credit card bills, which are about $430 per month, and then another $300 for miscellaneous expenses, dress clothes for work, an occasional movie night, and a Mr. Magic lamp to pet when you're feeling down. As a result, 61% of Americans don't have enough savings to cover a $1,000 emergency. Like when your car breaks down, you stub your toe too hard, or when you lose your job, which, let's face it, is more likely now than ever. But how and when did our financial situation get so bad? If you want to easily and quickly save more money, get my free savings goal calculator and savings checklist, link below. Historically, the US has been a symbol of financial prosperity. The idea was if you worked hard and saved, you'd be financially okay. But it's not so easy anymore. In recent years, the gap between rising costs and income growth have been growing larger. As a result, 62% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. The weird thing is, income has been growing for decades now. Chances are you're probably earning more than your parents did, even when adjusted for inflation. Which sounds great, but when you begin to ask yourself a few questions, a different narrative emerges. Why am I struggling to pay for college when my parents managed on minimum wage? Why can't I afford a tiny apartment when they owned a house at 25? In economics, they call this purchasing power. Basically, it's how much you can buy with a defined amount of money. Take this $100 bill, for example. In 5 years, although this will still be a $100 bill, how much you can actually buy with it will be less. Today, for $100, I can maybe get a cup of coffee from Blue Bottle and a quarter pounder of cheese from McDonald's. In 3 years, for $100, I might only be able to get a cup of coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. In the 1970s, the minimum wage was about $2.30. The median price of a US house was $17,000. Two high school kids could get married on graduation day, start working, and own a house in less than 4 years. Today, unless you're making over $18 an hour, you're poorer than a minimum wage worker from the 1970s, adjusted for inflation. Although paychecks are substantially bigger than 40 years ago, the reality is real average income has barely budged since 1978. The problem is, Americans are now more productive and work harder than any other time in history. Naturally, this rise in labor productivity results in an increase in company revenue. In a perfect market, this would lead to a proportional increase in labor income. And for a period of time, this was true, until we got here. In the 1980s, a gap started to form. Productivity continued to increase with technological advances, fax machines, floppy disk, pagers, but growth in wage and compensation started to slow down. So where is all this new and extra revenue going to? Here's a hint. In the 1970s, a CEO earned 20 times more than their typical worker. Today, a CEO makes 399 times more. While paychecks have been growing over time for millennials and Gen Z, wealth has been decreasing. Today, millennials hold 41% less wealth than a similarly aged adult in 1989, and it's all because of this one thing. Economists use the cost of thriving index to more accurately gauge our financial situation. Basically, this index shows how many days a typical worker would need to work in a given year to earn enough income to cover the major expenses for a family of 4. There's food, healthcare, transportation, and education. In 1985, the average major expenses for a family of 4 was around $13,227. The typical male worker needed to work about 30 weeks to cover this cost. But in 2018, the average major living expense is now $54,441, and a typical male worker has to work 53 weeks to cover this cost. In case you didn't know, there were only 52 weeks in a year. Unless you live in an alternative universe, the reality is the typical worker is not even living paycheck to paycheck anymore. They're actually doing worse. Older generations like baby boomers love to say these financial issues isn't because of income. Rather, it's because we're spending too much on unnecessary things. $20 avocado toast, $7 coffees, and an annual Netflix subscription. But is any of that actually true? A 2021 research study revealed how different generations spend their money, and the data is pretty shocking. When it comes to which generation spends the most money, Generation X, those who were born between 1965 to 1980, takes first place, with an average annual spending of $83,357. In second place, Millennials, with an average spending of $69,061. And then in third place, Baby Boomers, with $62,203. At the surface level, this looks like the baby boomers are right. Millennials are spending more money. But when we break down the actual spending percentages by expense category, a completely different story emerges. Across the board, the biggest expense for every generation is housing, accounting for more than 30% of total annual spending. Similarly, the second biggest expense is transportation, cars, Ubers, and public buses. But where it starts to get interesting is the third biggest expense, when generational spending splits. For boomers, their third biggest expense is food and then healthcare. For millennials and Gen X, their biggest expense is personal insurance and pension, then food. So based on the data, younger generations clearly spend less of their income on food than baby boomers, which dispels the avocado toast and $7 coffees trope. But what about Netflix subscriptions? Surely millennials are spending all their money going out, partying, drinking, and watching movies, right? The data shows that all generations spend more than 4% of their total expenditures on entertainment. However, both baby boomers and Gen X devote a higher percentage of their income to this category than millennials. If the affordability crisis is not because of unnecessary spending, then what is the actual amount of money that Americans actually need? When it comes to what feeling financially secure actually looks like, let's just say it's complicated. In 2023, a research study found that on average, you need $68,499 after taxes to live comfortably across the 25 largest metro areas: San Francisco, Boston, New York. which I thought was weird because that's less than the current median household of $74,580. And we already determined that this number isn't financially sustainable. So what's going on? Why is there such a large disconnect between how much Americans actually need and how much research studies say we need? Professor Amy Glassmere and her colleagues might know a thing or two about this. Her research into wages started when the US was coming out from a recession. She witnessed countless people lose their jobs and financially struggle. In response, she created the MIT Living Wage Calculator. Its objective was clear: to help people determine the living wage they needed to earn to support themselves and their family based on where they live. Naturally, a family in New York City would need to earn more money than a family from Kansas. Over time, MIT's Living Wage Calculator became the gold standard. It's ranked on the first page of Google, used by policymakers and researchers alike. Even major companies like IKEA and Patagonia use it to determine how much to pay their workers based on where they live. Which sounds great, but this is actually the crux of the problem. A research study found that you need $68,499 to live comfortably. That's less than the current median household of $74,580. There are three major issues with MIT's calculator that no one is talking about, and I only found out after digging into the technical details of how it works. First, the calculator does not budget for common living expenses. No prepared meals, no restaurants, no vacations, no holidays, or any money to cover anything unexpected. Broke your phone? Good luck. Fridge stopped working? Oops. Got a parking ticket? Too bad. Next, it doesn't incorporate savings of any kind. Meaning if the calculator says you need to earn $60,000 to live, you are expected to spend the entire $60,000. There won't be anything extra. No emergency fund, no savings, no safety net. Want to retire one day? You can't. Want to buy a house? Sorry. But if you do want to quickly and easily save more money, get my free savings goal calculator and savings checklist, link below. Next, the living wage calculation is only a tiny step up from poverty, meaning if your state's poverty rate is $30,000 a year, the calculator will say your living wage is $32,000. MIT's Living Wage Calculator, and I quote from its website, draws a very fine line between the financial independence of the working poor and the need to seek out public assistance or suffer consistent and severe housing and food insecurity. But the real problem isn't how the calculator works. Professor Glassmere is transparent and documents all the assumptions and methodologies used. The real problem is this. In 1929, President Theodore Roosevelt introduced the idea of a living wage to the country. He said a living wage should let workers secure the elements of a normal standard of living, including education, recreation, childcare, a cushion for periods of sickness, and savings for old age. While most Americans understand this to be the definition of a living wage, the calculator, which is named the Living Wage Calculator, doesn't achieve this. In reality, it calculates the minimum rock bottom wage you need to not starve or be homeless. Knowingly or not, research studies and policymakers use MIT's Living Wage Calculator all the time. As a result, study after study consistently underestimates how much money an American actually needs. They think they're using a living wage in the traditional sense, but in reality, the number is just a step up from poverty. The problem is that these studies set the baseline for major companies like IKEA and Patagonia on how much they should pay their employees. Companies like these enjoy the reputational benefits of claiming to pay a living wage based on MIT's Living Wage Calculator, but they completely leave out how this wage is calculated. So until we have a new calculator methodology, we won't have an empirical number on how much money Americans actually need. But what if I said that this should be the least of your worries? What most people don't realize is that something weird is happening to your job. Today, employers are firing people without actually firing people. Click here to discover what's happening before it happens to you.